Hello, this is Daniel Raymond, the voice behind Ray's Guide. I've been doing a series of videos about Pyro, and I think a lot of folks have been wondering what I was trying to get to and what may feel like, well, this way too early a time for a discussion about Pyro. And the reason for that is this video, the Pyro Fleet. In other words, if you are expecting to be a Pyro player or considering to be a Pyro organization, how does that change how you might evaluate ships during the Invictus launch week sale this week? And it also explains why I set the limits of my discussion as to what we are likely to see when Pyro is opened in 4.0 and a couple of releases to sort it out, say 4.2. Because beyond that, we would be talking about what factors would be affecting next year's or 2 years from now ship sales. Now, I'm not going to say that you need one of this and one of that, because that would be presuming how big your budget was or how big your org was. And obviously, I can't presume either of those things. So instead, I'm going to talk about what features would be extra valuable in Pyro to guide you in your own considerations. So let's start with a review of what I think will be setting Pyro apart from Stanton in terms of fleet considerations. Pyro is going to have persistent reputation-based consequences to your actions. You won't be able to hack your reputation back to neutral at some terminal or logging out in jail for the night. Pyro is going to have locations be reputation locked to certain gangs. Keeping up with who is in control of where is important, and you may find it difficult not to wind up taking sides in those conflicts. Finally, Pyro is just going to have far fewer places like stations and outposts for you to get services. You will have just Ruin Station and, per the last CitizenCon presentation, 50 homestead-style outposts, which may or may not have services to offer and may or may not be reputation blocked even if they do. You are going to have to be much more self-reliant. I've gone over what those services are and the likelihood of you finding them among the outposts in the video on whether you are a Pyro player, so I decided not to retread that content here and jump right into the features. First, beds will be a big bonus. As a single pilot, if you use bedless ship, you will need a location with the trifecta of habs, hangars, and an ASOP terminal. And right now, the only place in Pyro with a high likelihood of all three is Ruin Station. So without a bed, you may wind up chained to Ruin Station for all of your operations. With ship refueling, you will luckily be able to not be limited in range from it, but you will be a crimp on your session planning. Second, ships with landing pads or hangars or snub docks will be golden, because every landing pad represents a bedless light fighter that doesn't have to be chained to Ruin Station. The Kraken would be perfect in this regard, but since it is unlikely to be ready in our 4.2 discussion timeframe, somewhat irrelevant. The Liberator is much more likely, although not certain, to be flying in that timeframe. But there is an open question about how the Liberator and other ships will work as ship storage and transport. Let me illustrate. Let's say we have Liberator Larry and Hornet Harry. Harry wants Larry to hold his Hornet while he snoozes at Starfarer Sherry's. Now, when Harry goes to that bunk and sleeps at Starfarer Sherry's, what happens to Harry's Hornet on Larry's Liberator? Does it vanish from Larry's Liberator only to reappear when Harry awakes? Even if Gary's Gladius is on the pad now? Clearly a core gameplay need. And is there anybody available to work on core gameplay features only needed for the PU? Would be to have Hornet Harry be able to temporarily connect his Hornet to Liberator's Larry's spawn-despawn tree in the Entity Graph database without actually changing ownership or other rights. Now, if the Liberator is not available in 4.0, I would anticipate that Hercules C2s will be pressed into service, not as cargo ships, but as makeshift carriers to substitute for the not yet available Liberator. Because item 3, Prime Pyro cargo ships will be in medium sizes in ships that can assist in their own defense and present less of a tempting target. The reason that I don't foresee either Ruin Station or any of the homestead outposts having the kind of population or industrial capacity to regularly need to produce or consume hundreds of SCU of anything on a regular basis. So I am foreseeing a lot of freelancers, including the Freelancer Max, Star Runners, Connie-Tauruses, and maybe at the top end, Railins, and at the small end of that range, the Cutlass Black. If I were to guess, their greatest freight needs would be in hydrogen and oxygen for breathing, energy, and water, and producing scrap, but not in Starfarer or Caterpillar-sized quantities. Now, an open question is whether the Banu Merchantman will be a great Pyro ship, because Players have so many needs that a well-equipped BMM could fill, or whether a fully stocked BMM would just be too tempting a target and too large for the demand of the hinterlands. The next consideration for Pyro is, to the extent possible, multi-purpose ships will be preferred over single-purpose ships. Why? Well, in Stanton, you can go to your favorite space station, step to the ASOP terminal, store your prior single-purpose ship, and retrieve your new single-purpose ship. In Pyro, you either likely have a long trip to get to any ASOP terminal, or you were forced to take up an extra spot on Liberator Larry's ship. Stock up on single-purpose ships and expect to also have to be stocking up on carriers. But that segues to my next point, and that is the importance of service-providing ships that can help take the gap of having so few service locations in Pyro generally. And the Liberator, presuming it is finished and available, is sort of taking a weak attempt at filling in for the lack of ASOP terminals. And next in that line is any ship with a respawn-capable medbed, taking up for the lack of medical clinics in Pyro, which officially we may only have one in Ruin Station. So medbeds is a bigger feature in Pyro than in Stanton, and they're pretty valued in Stanton already. Repair is the biggest question about ship services in Pyro. We can be fairly sure that from the various sprint reports that CIG is fairly along being able to do hull stripping and patching. But what about replacement of wings and lost components? Will CIG temporarily hand wave our being able to spray on a replacement wing and lost components? Will CIG temporarily hand wave our being able to spray on a wing or lost shield generator? That feels way too unrealistic for what we know is CIG's development philosophy. What I expect is something else. Currently, if you look at the components available for sale in various shops, they are grades A and B and rarely C. But in a shipyard post from 2017, CIG mentioned a D-grade component, and who knows, could have easily created a E-grade component if they wish. So I suspect that what we will allow you to do on the edge of civilization is to pay way too much to be able to get a grade D or E component or wing slapped onto your ship, and who knows, they might be able to sell you an entire so-called ship put together with grade D components and duct tape to get you someplace to do a real ship claim, sort of Flight of the Phoenix style. It is certain that eventually ships like the Crucible will be crucially important for repair in the frontier, just like the Pioneer will be crucially important for player homesteads. But it just doesn't seem like this year's decision. Refinery is, of course, a service that will be provided by the Expanse, presuming, of course, that the mechanics described in the Q&A get implemented in the expected time frame. So it is a bit like the Crucible. Certainly essential in the future, but is this the year that you need to make the buying choice? Now, I expect that many Expanse owners are thinking greedily about refining Quantanium into quantum fuel, but you are likely going to be competing with every single Starfarer in Pyro for that Quantanium, and they will have a utility advantage for it by being able to immediately turn around and sell the fuel, while you in the Expanse will not. So I expect that the bread and butter of the Expanse owner will be the most valuable non-fuel refining products, because they won't have to compete with the Starfarers and Odysseys for that. Which, of course, brings up the ship that is almost impossible to consider Pyro without, and that is refueling. And I regard refueling to be the primary of all the Pyro services, because if it is going to take you a long time to get someplace where you need to be repaired, then that is a nuisance. But if you are going to take a long time to get to a repair location and you don't have the fuel, well,
Houston, we have a problem.
Now, how many Starfarers will be needed and where will they be needed depends on one question. Will Stanton build a starbase at the jump point entrance? Because a starbase at a wormhole entrance? Who would have thought of something like that? Except just about everybody, including these two guys. So, if Stanton, perhaps over turf disputes, doesn't build a, let's call it, Deep Space 10 station, then the most popular place to set up as a Starfarer serving Pyro will be near the jump point on the Stanton side. Because two things will be true. Everybody will arrive at the jump point with less than a full tank, and everybody will want to arrive in Pyro with a full tank. And without a Deep Space 10 station, there's only one way to do that. As for within Pyro, the place to set up shop will be near, but not actually at key outposts. The reason for not wanting to be actually at the key outpost is that you don't want to be caught in the middle of the action if somebody decides to raid that outpost. I also suspect that this will be one of the main decisions as to where Pyro Orgs will choose their secret common log-in, log-out locations, landmarks at near but not at key outposts. I suspect that the key decision for Starfarer captains, until they can refine their own fuel, will be whether to buy high and sell even higher by obtaining their bulk fuel in places like Ruin Station, or whether it will be to buy way low in Stanton and sell way high in Pyro, but have a long transportation times and expenses to get there. If the latter, expect to have to fill your Starfarer's internal tanks from another Starfarer at the jump point. If I were to put all this together, what ships do I think will be attractive to Pyro fleets at various price points? This is just my opinion, but in large part they will be ships that are also popular in Stanton, but for different reasons. In the starter ships, I see the 100I as being compact, multi-role, and having a bed. Slightly larger is the Avenger and Nomad, also for being multi-role and allowing bed logout. Getting into the dedicated fighters, the Vanguard and Defender will be treated with much more respect in Pyro than in Stanton because they have beds and are more multi-role. Slightly larger, the Cuddy Black and Freelancer for bed log route and multi-role versatility. Larger still, the Mercury Star Runner and Freelancer Max will be the sweet spot for Pyro's needs for cargo running to outposts, while not being too easy a target. The Connie will get plenty of interest in Pyro ships for the Merlin Snub Fighter, and for flexible cargo lifts will also be able to function as vehicle carriers. The Carrack pretty much checks all the boxes. Small hangar, medical bed, and multi-role versatility. The larger sibling Odyssey does the same. But don't take any of that as pressure to buy a big ship. Those big ships are going to need crew. Lots of crew. So just because you don't buy those ships yourself doesn't mean you won't be playing in them. Plus, of course, all those ships are available with in-game money. Now, among the service provider ships in a Pyro fleet, obviously the Starfarer is tops, followed in order of priority by the Liberator, Crucible, and Expanse. Those last three might become available for next year's shows, but more likely you won't have to regard them as this year's decision priority at all. So get in touch with your inner procrastinator with them. We will know so much more about the reality of Pyro by next year's ILW, and less need to put hard plans behind informed speculation. So now for an update on the Grow the Channel ship giveaway. As of recording, we are approaching 71% of the subscriber goal and 61% of the membership goal to give someone's choice of either the Anvil Liberator, the ship shipping ship for shipping your ships, or the Myst Odyssey long duration exploration carrier. Members, you're all entered automatically, and if the winner was a member as of the publication date of the winning video and at the drawing date, they will win both of those ships. For everybody else, just be a subscriber and comment with the secret word. And the secret word for this video is the movie and real-life catchphrase from Apollo 13. Fly safe, keep it real, and I'll see you in the verse. This is Daniel Raymond for Ray's Guide.